Mike Olivella.
Yep.
Praecore. Welcome to the show, my dude.
Thank you.
I'm so stoked to have you. We're down here in Georgia at the Arena Training Facility. You know, I did one earlier with Mark Smith, and we had a little bit of light so people could see kind of the pond behind us and the nature and kind of our setting. Amazing spot. Thanks so much for having me down, man.
No, you're welcome. It's a great location. We looked around, and this place it definitely checks the boxes for us. We tried hard to find everything to create this atmosphere in our classes where folks could stay in one place. We train when we get up, we knock off for the day, but we have dinner together, we sit down, and the class never really stops. The best questions come out in the evening.
Yes.
You know, over a beer after somebody has had a chance to get off the range, wash their hands, get cleaned up, and just think about it. And like the light bulb goes on from something that happened at 2:00 in the afternoon, and we come back to it like, you know, I couldn't find the words in the moment, but hey, can you run me through this one more time? And Fred's the last one to go to bed, so like I mean he's always available, and we try to capture all of that. So
I think that's a thing. I think I was talking about that earlier with Mark or somebody. Maybe it was last night I was talking to Blake. But the best part about this, and I mentioned this to you, I think yesterday, it's just that I'm a processor. You came by, you're just like, hey man, how you doing? You good? I'm like, yeah. And I get that a lot from people because they hear me on the show, you know, and I'm talking to people, I'm asking a lot of questions, and I'm really engaged that way. Like I'm all in when we're sitting in these situations, and I'm all in when we're on the range or in whatever teaching situation.
Yeah, you were laser focused, man. I leave you alone and let you do your thing.
Yeah, I'm quiet. I'm very quiet. I'm just trying to take it all in. I'm listening to everybody else. But what you just said right there about, as a processor, and going back and laying in bed at night till 2 a.m, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the things that I learned today and the mistakes I made and the successes I had and the successes and the mistakes I saw other people, experience throughout the day. But prior to that, though, yeah, we finish up the day and you get to come back and you get to ask questions. You get to have some really, let's just say, very specific conversations about a lot of things. And what you find in these situations is the dudes that come out to these things are, are just really good dudes that have so much to offer, and not just the instructors, right? And we'll talk about you guys in a second, but the men that are out here and the things that they're doing and what they bring to the table and how they contribute to the growth and education process is nothing short of remarkable. And it's not something that you can create otherwise. You just have to be here.
That's the enrollment process. I mean, we keep getting dinged on there's no website link to sign up and come buy this. This isn't available to everybody. I interview every single student that reaches out that wants to take this class. We talk, and I make sure they understand what we're going to do here for the next couple of days. And not everybody is right for this class.
Not for everybody. Yeah.
It isn't. They're looking for something else. It's not that our class is not available to everybody, but I need to make sure you understand what you're signing up to buy. Mm-hmm. And if you think it's going to be another experience, I'm going to tell you who you should be looking into, and you can sign up for those classes. They're great. And when you're ready for this, what we're doing here, then let's give it a try. I want to hear what your goals are. Mm-hmm. What holes are in your game right now? The distance carbine template that we do, I call it diet precision rifle. There's no there's no computers. It's a little simpler.
I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
We try to take some of those aspects out of it. We talk about the main ideas the computers handle and what they're doing, but we want to take the rifles that is your everyday use gun, and it can still be applied to distance. And all of the fundamentals are the same. I mean, like we have to execute those correctly. You can do a lot more with less. And I'm not always going to have that long gun. That's not the best tool for. We're doing as much as we can with a Leatherman, not a specialized tool.
I think that's an interesting way to put it too, because when you look at what's happening out here, and we can talk about that a little bit, and this is what intrigued me, and I want to actually tell that story for a minute, but was the doing more with less, and then also recognizing that not everybody has a quiver of all of these things accessible to them. But we know now more than ever, how many Americans, are out there that have a carbine, 11 and a half, 12 and a half, 13.7, 14.5, 16-inch, whatever. That's what they have.
Right.
And so, what is that thing capable of, and what can you do? And that conversation, this is the story. So I'm at SHOT Show, right? And that was my first experience there, and admittedly a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit nervous, because I had this amazing lineup of people that I was out there to interview, as well as get the full experience. It's day one, and I hadn't interviewed yet. I hit the floor, and I was waiting for my boy Eli, who helps me with all the editing and all the cool stuff that this will actually get turned into. He showed up, and we went upstairs into the suite. We set up the interim studio for the week or whatever. I'm like, all right, man, it's time to go downstairs and get a drink. Like I need to relax. So I get on the elevator, or we push the button for the elevator. The door opens, and there's you and Fred standing there in the elevator. And I'm like, holy shit, these are the guys. Like, this is, and mind you, I'd been down on the floor earlier, and I'd met and seen a lot of people that I had never met before, but also met up with people that I had in the past. And this was like, well, this is a fucking opportunity. I got 30 seconds to go from, the 11th floor to the first floor. I'm taking an opportunity here. I'm like, dudes, how's it going?
Hitting all the buttons.
It was basically like that. Yeah, it was basically like that. And, it was very, very much, you guys were, it was, hey, good, we're doing good. I'm like, you guys headed to the bar? And, exactly, it was exactly that. But here's the thing. We wound up having a very, I'm just going to call it this without giving credit to myself. There was a very intelligent, very intuitive conversation that was happening at that time. And it was about what you just said. And to me, that really resonated, as a guy who's on a journey to do more with less, who has some, has capability but limited, and is looking to make the most out of what he can get out of the time that he spends doing the things that he does. And when that's an investment in time, that's an investment in money, and that's an investment in energy. There's emotion involved there, and and whatever. And I had the opportunity to talk with you guys separately during that night, and it didn't take me long. But I will tell you, this conversation went a couple hours, and into the wee hours of the morning, where I was just like, I have to know more. Like, I have to know more. And then, so when there was an invite, I was like, oh, I'm fucking doing this. Like, and so this thing had been on the calendar a while. Like, it was like, hey, you can come out to this thing. And I was like, oh my God, like, I had other obligations during this time. I was like, how am I going to tell this guy no? I'm like, I got to work this out. And then, as good things generally do, and when the universe, aligns, and the moon, sun, and stars and things happen, this ended up being, an availability on the calendar, and I was able to work it out. And I feel completely blessed to be here, and so fortunate to have, we're just sort of alluding to the experience that I'm getting, and the knowledge that I'm getting, and it's so different in so many ways, but also it's very what's the word I'm looking for? It's very familiar in terms of other great experiences that I'm having, but it's very different at the same time. And the only way you're going to understand that is to come to one of these things.
Sure.
But man, this has been something, and there's still a whole other day in front of us that I can't get.
Yeah, wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. So that said, I just want to publicly thank you for having me here.
No, you're welcome.
And trusting me to number one, come out here and be part of what you guys are putting together, because it's special. And, people might be listening to that going, oh, okay, whatever. You got something to sell or, promote or whatever else. Whatever, dude. Whatever. You can think whatever you want, but this is different. And at the same time, I know when I walk away from here, or when I go back and I have to travel back all the way across the United States after I've had a few whiskeys with all the Georgia bugs. I mean, every whiskey has at least 3 bugs per sip. Like, it's just something you got to get used to.
That's why I'm running the lid.
You've been here before. You've done this.
Not my first trip.
I'm a rookie. Yeah, drinking out of the styrofoam cup, open-lidded styrofoam cup. But going home, I know that there will be so much that I will continue to process and think about and be able to apply every time I go out to the range to do anything.
That's the idea. I mean, it really is. The skill set from day one is directly transferable to anything shooting. The fundamentals of the fundamentals.
Doesn't change.
They don't. And we have obviously the nuances that precision rifle scoped guns need, but you can distill these principles and everything we did to your pistol shooting, to
1,000%.
anything. Mm-hmm. And it is a refinement clinic on the fundamentals, but then yet some validation. You need a little bit of that. What we did today is this is the part people are looking for. You got to prove it. We have to see it, and we did it.
Well, we more than did it. We had success with it, but we also had a lot of failures in it, and getting way outside your comfort zone with a lot of things.
That's the idea.
And being held accountable to those things in a very deliberate kind of way, which I found to be refreshing in a lot of ways. But again, the accountability piece is really what I'm taking away from this. And I don't mean that in like, you did it or you didn't do it. No, it's like, what are you doing? Like, what am I doing? And how are the inputs that I'm putting in affecting the outputs that I'm actually getting in this process? And they're measurable, right? So then you can immediately step back and go, okay, so if this happened, I can start to go back through the steps to understand why it happened that way. Which was, again, I there's richness in that, and again, people can be listening to this going, yeah, man, that's what you should be getting from every class. You're probably, yeah, you're right, you should be, but you don't. So you can walk away and feel like you got faster or you know, more accurate or whatever. But did you really? Do you know why? And do you know how you did it? That's been a real takeaway for me.
The best educator I ever had in anything, period. I mean, going through school or coaching with shooting or any other activity I've been involved in. His curriculum was heavily steeped in the concept of the relationship between comfort zone and margin for error. Now, there is a huge safety component involved with firearms. We've got to do everything safely, and getting outside your comfort zone while still remaining safe.
Yeah, with no compromise there. Yep.
No compromise there. Like that's important. But the more time we can spend outside of our comfort zone, we expand that margin for error. It gets a little bigger once we get back in our comfort zone. And this is a bit of a stretch of what is accepted as a norm. Lots of people say it can't be done, and they slap labels on it and limitations. But it's no different. When you jump over to precision rifle, range is just a number. And what is possible? There was just a couple of weirdos a decade and a half ago that were shooting 308 at a mile. 1,600 meters with a 308 was
weirdos.
That's crazy talk. Only super long barrels.
It's a 300-yard gun, man.
Right. Wow. 800 to 1,000 yards. If you look on Wikipedia, something silly like that. The replacement for the M110 these days, the HK submission they're doing now, M110A1. It's with the 6-power optic it has. They slap a label on it. Max effective range is 600 meters. It's just. That's crazy talk to us. We've been doing it for a long time, and to try to create a curriculum that we can unpack in 2 days for the everyday shooter that they can just bring nothing more than a red dot and a magnifier and jump out to over 700-800 yards. What did you get out to today?
No, I got out to like 780 yards today.
780 meters.
Yeah, meters.
We shoot meters. We do that, but we brag in yards.
Right. So that's interesting. So going back to yesterday and what you were just saying there about pushing people outside of their comfort zone, in order to do that, you have to accept that there may be some value in doing something different than what you've been told or what you've drilled into your belief system for a very long time.
Sure.
Whether that's in building position, whether that's in what your rifle is, again, capable or not capable of doing, whether that's in, what your optic is capable or not capable of doing. That was yesterday for me. And it was very uncomfortable because my experience has been with, let's just say, when you're looking through an optic at distance with way more information.
Sure.
Right. And I'm a guy that likes a lot of information. Like,
once you have it, you always geez, you've taken away all of my foundation that I want to stand on and all the things I normally want to use. It is a bit sobering to
put it lightly. And so then you recognize that there's so many like finer adjustments that you can make to your regular shooting game that will, when I say regular, like inside 50, 100 yards or whatever, and how those fundamentals within the fundamentals that you can almost, I don't want to say ignore, but just be like, yeah, I got that, like almost under respect it, like how those have to be revisited in a different way. And so in listening to, you're going, really, man? Because this sounds wacky, right? Like in a couple of cases. But the teaching process and the curriculum and the way you guys have put it together, there's a slow build to this, and you kind of have to hang in there a little bit as a student. You have to hang in there, and part of that comes with trust. So if you come, that comes with mindset, right? You have to be like, look, I'm here for a reason. So I just need to listen. I need to put this stuff aside for a second, and I need to kind of fall forward into it, right? Rather than resist it and just give it a shot. And when you do that, it's very hard for me to relax into it. But once I got there and I was seeing things kind of happen with a lot of failure, right? To start, things started to click a little bit. And I walked away from yesterday, I'm not going to lie, I was a little frustrated. Not with you, not with the curriculum, with me, and not being like a faster learner. And here's what I recognized.
Couldn't tell.
Staring at the ceiling last night, I was like, no, it's not my learning process. I'm learning. I just haven't executed properly. Not yet.
You had an expectation based on what you've already done.
1,000%.
And people come at this from different corners.
Yep.
So it's a pretty equal balance of folks that take this class that have never done any type of distance shooting whatsoever, no reticles, they don't own an LPVO or a larger magnified optic. This is it. Mm-hmm. They had a pistol, then they bought a shotgun or a carbine, and they've taken some classes. They shot out to 100, 200, and then, well, what's this about? And we've had all walks of life on that side, from deputies and officers and service members to UFC fighters, all over the place that have done. This is as far as they have ever gone, period. Like, this is their entire experience with distance shooting. Then we've also had people like training background like yourself, that you've dabbled in a lot of things.
That's exactly it. That's me.
You have gone high. You have had some formal instruction with long-range training, and now we're applying it to something that it's not implied that this tool be used in this way. Mm-hmm. So you've got a little bit different perspective as to, okay, I get it. I've seen the ride. I know the projectile flies out there and does it. It's possible.
I just have to figure out how to make this work.
But now I have to do it in this format.
Yep.
And I'm going to learn these new nuances to make this equipment make it possible.
So here's how this transitioned and sort of evolved for me today. Mm-hmm. So again, I walked away yesterday a little frustrated, like I wished I'd done better. But that's all based on probably some unrealistic expectation. Not that I didn't expect that the gun could do that, because there's plenty of other people on the line that were making it happen. It's like, why am I not making it happen? So
why do you train?
What's that?
Why do you train?
Why? Yeah, to get better, to be better all the time.
Better than who?
Better than me.
Better than you yesterday.
Better than me. So
that's the only reason to train.
So I got up today, right? And I put that all aside and I walked out there today and I was with some amount of reservation and hesitation, like, God, I hope I don't suck today, right? That's how I always, approach things in life, hard things. I was like, I just don't want to suck at this. So, but I got past that a little bit, and there were with most things, and I think this is most things in life, like if you work hard enough at something and you just continue to focus and you listen, you trust the process, trust the coaches, and you give them again, you they're in the driver's seat. Like, just listen to these are the pilots, right? Like, I get on airplanes all the time and I don't fucking think about it, right?
Sure.
Like, I just expect they're going to get me there. So that's why I had to remind myself of that this morning. Just like the plane trips that I took to get here. Like, I got to get on this plane and I got to ride it for a little while. I'm not trying to fly it yet, right? I need to understand how this works first, right? What the fundamentals are. So there were some aha moments today. Fred got behind me on the spotting scope today, and he walked me into a target. There were about 3 things he said to me today and Fred's a man of, which is interesting. I can't wait to talk to him more, but he's a guy that he's kind of a quiet guy, but when he has something to say, like, I'm all locked in, he boiled it down into just a few basic sentences, and it changed my world. And then after that, boom, I was hitting, right?
And then he says a lot without saying much.
That's what I mean. And he didn't have to. And you know what? He knew that.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to overload me with information. He knew I had the stuff in there. I just needed to apply it differently, or I needed to hear it maybe a little differently. And I did that. And here's the thing, that from that point forward, I just remembered everything he said when I missed.
Sure.
On any other target, I was like, okay, so let me come back to these very basic things. And part of it was just like, I was not comfortable being out in no man's land.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. And maybe we can talk about that different when you're looking through that reticle. But for the listeners out there, I didn't own a magnifier until about 2 weeks ago. So I shoot at EOTech all the time on all my stuff. Anything else I've done has been on LPVO. So putting a magnifier on there, I was literally looking through it and shooting through it for the second time ever, yesterday. So to go back and have an expectation that I was going to be fucking crushing it is ridiculous.
Sure.
Right? So anyhow, that again, some huge takeaways today. And so my evolution from yesterday to today, to the end of today, by the time I finished today, I was like, thank God. Like, you're not a dumbass. It was was the pressure I was putting on myself.
I mean, it's a bit on hard mode. I mean, an EOTech with a magnifier, it's not a scope. The optical experience and how good glass is getting with the LPVOs and any other scope, it's not the same image quality, any of it. I mean, look at how many pieces of glass that the image goes through. Mm-hmm. It gets done, but no, it is not the optical experience we would prefer to have, but man, it sure is convenient at a couple of ounces that it pops off your gun and goes in a pouch or a pocket.
Sure.
And then look how much I can do now with it. What an eye-opener it is. The magnifier, I mean, I was not a very big magnifier believer until about 6-7 years ago. I never really found one that worked well, but I did commit to them. And it was pretty profound of how powerful that sensor actually is. The things you can do with it. It does not just make things 3 times bigger. Mm. All of the things we went through in class, helping you with calling wind better, to all of it. Mm-hmm. It's a tremendous capability boost. And the nice thing about it, it's just renting space on your gun. It doesn't have to live there.
Yeah, this is the thing. This comes back to the doing more with less.
With less.
And again, when you think just about the average dude out there and what he may or may not have in his safe,
sure.
The best gun being the one that he has.
Right.
Right. And how to be as capable as you can with what you've got. This makes a lot of sense. Right. And I also think, for those listeners out there that are like, well, I don't have a long distance gun. Well, what do you have? Because you'd be surprised at what that thing can do when you shoot
rifles.
It. Exactly right. This is not a pistol, right? That just shoots a little further with a little bit bigger caliber, right?
It's not a subgun. It's a rifle.
It does shit. It does shit, and you have to shoot it to understand that, and you have to be exposed to these things and be again, as I said, taken way outside of your comfort zone to really understand that. And again, so some profound moments. Again, there were some very skilled shooters on the line over the last 2 days, and I watched all of them work. I stand in the back, a lot of times, and I'm quiet, and I'm just I'm not zoning out. I'm literally in. I'm exhausted, quite frankly, just from the information overload. But that's not just from what I was given as a student. It's what I'm gaining from watching and talking with other people, seeing how they use their equipment, how they manipulate it, what works for them.
And how many rounds did you bring?
Yeah, so here's the thing. That was the thing. I woke up this morning and I looked at my box of ammo and I was like, because I had ammo shipped out here. I'm like, I'm not traveling with this. And I looked in and I was like, dude, I don't know if I'm going to have enough ammo to get through today. I had 200 rounds shipped here. I used all 200 rounds, but we used them right up until the last drill. And like, I always want to feel like I left something on the table, a little bit, at the end, with regard to how many rounds I fired, because we're not burning shit down out here.
Nope.
Things are supposed to be precise, right?
Yep.
So anyway, I went through 200 rounds. I know guys were probably closer to the 250 count, maybe.
Ish.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I was being very deliberate about every shot I was sending down, with the exception of one point yesterday where I knew, because I've been here before, where I was getting a little frustrated and I was rattling shit off faster than I should have been. I was guessing. I was just like, I got to get the hit, right? Versus no. But slow the fuck down, man.
Yeah.
Like, yes, the goal is to get the hit, but how you get the hit is the important part here. So anyhow, 200 rounds. That's what I brought. And man, I got every dollar's worth out of every round, with the exception of maybe these 5 rounds that I kind of just sent. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It was great.
That's the, that is required in the packing list. And I say you can complete the curriculum with as few as 200 and it'll get it done. We want you to learn from each individual shot. There's lots of classes where you can go shoot a super high volume of fire over the course of 2 or 3 days. We want you to learn from every single shot. Every round is an opportunity. And if we don't hit, and even when we do, if we don't hit as well as we would like to, I'd like to learn a little bit more about that shot and make the next one better.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed the pressure of today, not yesterday, but today I enjoyed the pressure of knowing that I had a limited round count.
Yeah.
And so that mattered. Not that, I can let this one fucking go, or, no big deal. No, every shot was a big deal. So it all mattered. And so I actually enjoyed that pressure. So, for people that may be listening going, well, you've spent 2 days out there and you only put 200 rounds down. I've been signed up for classes where the minimum round count for like 6 hours is 500 rounds, and here I've spent, a collective, 16, 17 hours out on the range and in classroom time, which is important to understand. Like, you don't just go out there and do this. There's things you have to understand.
Sure.
And part of the curriculum is understanding the nuance of these things and how to set things up properly and what we're going to be looking at when we go out there. You can't do this without that classroom time. You can't. So if you're not a person that can be patient enough to sit in the classroom, then this probably isn't the right thing for you.
It's not.
Because what you're going to get...
It's not going to happen to you.
No.
You have to show up.
There has to be... that has to happen. You need to take notes. You need to understand that the information is dense. And what I saw, again, going back to the shooters on the line, there's some very experienced people here. They're all taking notes. They're all taking it in. They're all asking questions. So... And these are very good, accomplished, known shooters.
We get a lot of pros, man.
Yeah.
We have a lot of pros that take this seriously. They've been through packages before with similar objectives, or maybe something else that was very technically demanding. And yeah, we have a lot of pros come through the class, and that's what we're trying to find is the person that really wants what we're putting out. And I mean, the round count being abbreviated, this is a class that Fred and I designed in the middle of COVID. Ammo was scarce. Ammo was expensive. Ammo was hard to find. What could we do to bring what we like doing, like teaching, like talking about to everyone that might be interested in doing this and start stretching these guns out? There are a lot of folks that have never done any type of precision shooting or long range, and assume wrongly there's some voodoo to it, that it's not attainable. But we want to make this accessible to everybody,
Yeah.
and this is the gateway curriculum between your regular shotgun class and
The next thing. Right.
And we have designed two separate curriculums. This is block 1 of distance carbine. There is a block 2 that focuses more heavily on LPVOs. We get into the weeds on the reticle and what additional attributes that setup brings to the table, and it is different.
Yeah.
There are more options and different workflows. The distances don't change, but
the application changes.
the application does.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so that's my takeaway, is the distances don't change. The gun is capable.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Range is just a variable.
It's about you, the shooter, and what you are able to do with the given equipment.
Yep.
That happens to be in front of whatever you've chosen. And it doesn't have to be a $10,000 gun, right?
Nope.
It doesn't have to be a $5,000 gun,
Nope.
right? That was a great part about it. Again, everybody had learned a little something about their equipment this weekend, right? Or has to this point. And I certainly learned, a ton about mine. And it's a new gun to me, which was a little bit of a challenge as well,
Sure.
just kind of figuring it out, which is part of the reason I wanted to come,
Yeah.
And, going back and you were talking about, most people haven't had the opportunity to maybe reach out as far as like a facility like this will provide, which is one of the amazing parts about this facility, is that people, they'll say, well, I just, I don't have access to the 600, 800, whatever yardage, you're trying to shoot with whatever gun.
You rode the ride today, though. You saw today was just confirmation of all of the work we put in yesterday
at 100 yards.
That sent you home frustrated and exhausted.
Yep.
Frankly. And I mean, how much did you shoot yesterday?
I think I came out. So like I said, I had 200 rounds total. I probably went through
60.
Yeah, 60, maybe 70 rounds yesterday.
Okay. And that might be some of the 60, 70 hardest rounds you've shot in a while.
That's what I'm saying. That was enough to overwhelm me.
Sure.
Right. At a lot of levels. And it's the same for everybody. Everybody was challenged, even the more experienced guys at some level, yesterday with that round count. I think that the big takeaway from me from yesterday is something that you said, which really resonates with me. And I think this is something that people need to hear, is that you said for you, and, with a guy that what I witnessed was do some pretty crazy stuff with a carbine and a magnifier, was that if you had 2 hours or 3 hours to spend, or even a day at the range, that you would spend your time at 100 yards. Yep. Working on those fundamentals and the things that we did yesterday, because if you can't do that, then why are you trying to reach out to something else that you can't do at 100?
If you don't have the foundation, you have nothing.
Right. And so most people have, well, I don't know, that may be a statement, I may be speaking out of turn here, but if you can get to 100 yards, like there's so much that can be done.
Sure.
And I've learned that in other classes as well,
Sure.
is that like this is what really matters, the confirmation of what you can do at that point. That's your set point, because everything from there, then you're calculating and
it's confirmation,
doing all the things beyond that. So I think that's an important thing for people to hear. Like, there's no reason for you to say like, well, this is not important for me because, I only have, 50 to 100 yards to work with. Dude, you can get a lot of work done in that amount of time.
Yes, you can.
And how it translates. And had I not done that yesterday, today would have just been a shit show for me, a total shit show, and probably for everybody else. So again, some big takeaways, but just going back to sort of the curriculum and kind of what you're doing, here with this one, you mentioned block 2 and how it evolves. Let's talk about Praecore for a second.
Sure. Let's
go back to Praecore. First off, where does Praecore come from? Like, what does that even mean, man? I got to know.
Praecore is not a word. The company I worked for before forming Praecore, amazing organization, great people over there, and he named his company from two ancient languages to create a contraction that's not a word either.
Okay.
And I get that, because like I really can't find a way to define what I'm trying to do here well without something cliche and common. And if I'm going to do a company, I might as well sit down and think about this name. What does it mean to me? What is it that I want? What thought do I want to convey? And Praecore, Prae, pray, is the Latin prefix of pray, to come before, to originate, to be first. And core is from English language to be at the center of something. And I wanted that contraction to mean to be at the center in an original idea, an original thought, and a way of doing things. We're going to touch on the accepted norms and things that are our main ideas that we agree on, the fundamentals that they're like laws of gravity we don't mess with. But we want to show you an original way to apply those to maximum effect. So you completely understand the fundamentals. And once you've trained with us, it will make a lasting impression on everything you do beyond this. Distance carbine, you jump out, you take a pistol class next week. There are things that happened here in the last 2 days and will happen tomorrow that'll resonate with you, hopefully, in all of your future training that you're going to do. So that and the mission statement of my company. I use a short one. I got asked by the former owner of the company, or excuse me, the previous owner, organization I worked with before. What would your mission statement be for your company? And if you have to think about that and you kind of mumble something out, like you don't have a mission statement. Like it should like fire right back as a reflex. Mm-hmm. And I jump on this thing. Stay in front is my company's motto. It is the idea of stay ready, so you don't have to get ready for anything. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. I'm not talking silly stuff on a high level with water purification and canned goods and things like that. All of it. Stay ready, so you don't have to get ready. It's a whole lot harder to get ready for something than it is to already be in that posture.
Yep.
So
you're not reacting.
So we're not reactive. It's simple. There something comes up. Okay, this is what I do. I have a response for that, and I already know. I don't have to think about it.
That makes sense.
So
that's where that came from.
So that is the company, and there have been all kinds of other weird names that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's how it worked.
I mean, I think the people can get behind that. I mean, that's not a hard thing to understand. With that's a very simple explanation, and I think the more simple you can make it, I think that's a lesson for business owners, for instructors, for company owners out there. Is what are we really doing here? And if you can't sum it up like that, they call it what's the 30-second elevator speech, about your company. If you can do it in less than that, that people can walk away. Okay, I get it. That makes perfect sense.
1-page resume.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's step ahead, and I mean that comes from my previous life.
Yeah,
we had to have automatic responses to everything.
Very
thrown
specific
at you.
things, parameters. Yeah, so let's talk about previous life real quick and just resume for a minute. We don't have to spend a lot of time there, but sure. I find it interesting, as I get out there and I start to explore this world, shooting instruction, but that's a very limited, I think, lens to look at this from, because the people that I find that are being very successful here and are making the most impact are the ones that have, it's not shooting. That is a piece of it, and it's a big piece. I don't want to to minimize that at all.
No, not at all.
But it's bigger than this. And the other thing I find interesting is the amount of civilian people that have entered into the space, and those that they are making a huge impact and are doing it in a much different way, which is like there's like this evolution that's happening. in the space. Again, I'm gonna label it as the space because it's a big one. It's very broad.
Sure.
Off air we were sort of talking about this pie chart that our friend Joe has mentioned before, and all the things that go into this.
Spot on.
And if you don't know who Joe Dawson is, go check out Joe. Scroll down his feed, get into his pie chart analogy. It's very impactful. At least it was for me. But that said, many of the folks that are jumping into it come with these backgrounds that they're pretty, I would just say, remarkable. And it's interesting to find out how people made their way in. And so as we're just talking about resumes here for a second, I think your entry into this whole thing is interesting. So maybe there's a long history of how you made it in, but if you can maybe kind of boil it down to a couple minutes here, like I'm gonna set this up. It starts with skydiving, which is wild because I had no idea. So let's go back to this bar conversation for a second.
Sure.
Like, again, I'm like, I gotta know more because the skydiving thing came up in the conversations. Like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, what? Skydiving? Like, how does this fit in? So we got to tell the story. Like, people have to understand how this happened.
I got into skydiving in a previous life, lost a bet, was playing in a cover band in Tallahassee, and packed up all my stuff and decided to live on an airport and jump every day. And that led to I could make a living doing this. I started competing professionally and got picked up by one of the major manufacturers as one of the test jumpers for their canopies. I was a canopy manufacturer, and we were heavily focused on military product development. Mm-hmm. With the new leaps and bounds of tech and manufacturing capability, with that had to come instruction. These parachutes did things that the previous generation couldn't. The hardware itself, the canopies themselves could do things that were not available in the previous generation. So we needed to be able to put that out and teach the folks that the product was intended for how to get the most out of it and do it safely. That proximity with those organizations over time got me into the point where I was working with them on a more regular basis.
Gotcha.
Their requirements evolved, and where I worked and moved around in this industry, shooting was just a byproduct, and it was natural.
Got it.
Being over here on this side, and long range made sense to me. To me, bullets are small parachutes that go really fast, and all of the aerodynamic math and concepts of aviation translate directly in my mind how it works with bullet drop in different locations. And if I could learn over time to execute the fundamentals of marksmanship correctly, that the rest of this is just a math problem. And I try to convey that thought to new shooters that come into this, that the range is just a number. A 1 minute of ankle target at 150 meters is no more difficult to hit than a 1 minute of angle target at 1,300 meters. It's not tough. We have some other things we might need to account for.
Sure.
But its range is just one of the variables among many that we have to deal with. And
so it just came naturally.
It did. And I am largely self-taught and applied things and concepts that I used with the jumping. Mentioned this on an interview recently. As we moved around, when we were competing professionally, the sport that I was into, it was the canopy piloting, where we would dive these parachutes at the ground at a very high rate of speed from 1,300 feet above the ground, and level off and perform an event. There were 3 different competitive events we would get into, but density, altitude, and the weight of the atmosphere based on temperature, relative humidity, and barometric pressure, station pressure specifically, had a direct effect on my rate of descent. And I had a quiver of parachutes I would take and compete at different locations. So we're going from where I live at home, sea level in Florida, to Longmont, Colorado, to Pretoria, South Africa. These are all
Very
very
different.
different density altitudes. And if I turned my parachute to start this maneuver at the same altitude at a higher density altitude, I mean, it wouldn't have worked out very well. So I had to be very respectful of that concept. On the long range side, we get it wrong, we miss. On the parachute side, we get it wrong pretty much.
You die.
At those speeds, yeah, there was no margin for error. So with that very healthy respect for that relationship and how to approach it with some discretion and moving into it gradually, I would keep scorecards, which snipers refer to as data books, as to what it looked like when I was at this density altitude. And I was using a lot of the same measurement equipment that long range shooters do. Kestrel weather meters. I used to keep one and would record this information, and at such and such a temperature and barometric pressure and altitude, I needed to be effective at a certain altitude, and it worked. And some, as I was able to ease that down and get lower and lower to bring more power through the turn, it worked well. So I was basically building a dope card for each canopy. And it was like deja vu when I started shooting. I'm like, okay, I've done this before in some way. And it made sense.
Hence the bullets being like mini parachutes.
They are. To me.
There's a whole other aspect there, which is like the wind, right? And,
sure.
You know, I mean, obviously that's a big deal.
That was definitely a cheat code for me, because wind was everything with jumping. I needed to be on it with my estimation of what the wind strength and direction was in relation to the direction I wanted to land, to be as accurate as I wanted to be. And to be able to put down a parachute that is the size of a twin bed sheet from triple-digit speeds in a dive to then a precision stand-up tiptoe landing in a 1 meter by 1 meter square, I needed to know what the wind was doing. And I needed to be able to estimate that wind, speed and strength and direction on the fly, quickly. I would spend time on the ground. We would get shut down and couldn't jump anymore when we got to a certain wind speed. It was no longer cleared and safe to jump. But that was a part of every day. And I got 10 years before I ever started shooting or dabbling on this side of estimating wind speed every single day. So
fascinating.
It definitely helped out a lot when it comes to looking through an optic downrange at a target a mile away or 300 meters away, mirage, environmental indicators, all of these things. I'm used to looking at that with the things that I was doing before.
At that time, yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's very relatable. I mean, I hear you say that, and I'm like, this makes perfect fucking sense.
Sure.
Like, but I can't think of anything else that would be similar. I mean, it's
not much.
It's hard for me to think of anything else that would be similar to this. And we already talked about, like, the consequence of miscalculation in skydiving obviously is much, much different than, you know, again, sending a round over the target or sailing something left or right or whatever. So the precision piece of this makes perfect sense.
Yep.
So, all right, so you get into the shooting piece, this kind of comes together for you, and then
I had customers that there was a trust basis with, and I had developed that trust over time on the jump side. I worked with these organizations for a while at this point, and just luck had it that they had a designated marksman trip that fell through, training with another organization that it could not meet the requirements of the contract and the timetable they had. And one individual at that organization, we have had these conversations offline. I've been doing some shooting for a few years now and enjoyed it, and had been kind of had my own ideas about it. It's like,
put your hat in the ring.
Let's see what happens. And it turned out that was exactly what they were looking for. And I had an opportunity beforehand, looking at what they had for a skill set and was decent enough at it of identifying gaps that they already had, that were existing, glaring gaps in their game of what I would do if you needed my help for 5 days with jumping. These are the things we would work with to get you safer, better, more effective with the parachutes.
These are big rocks, man. These are these are things that are very important, right? Like
huge.
And for you, it's like these are obvious things that I have the ability to solve for
Absolutely.
You guys. Yeah, gotcha.
So the first class, I mean, I had a very good idea like what I wanted to do because it was what worked for me. We did basically an assessment. So I set up shots at distance and some evaluations and diagnostics at 100 yards, working these guys out as to what could they do. And immediately the gaps that I assumed existed did, based on the consultations ahead of time, evaluating the requirements. This is what we're asking for. This is what we want to get better at. I already had a few preconceptions as to what was going to take place. Some were right, some were wrong, and we were able to roll from there. And I had 5 days to work with them. So the entire discovery process on day one had me up all night. That first night, okay, so all of the paths we can take, of all of the different curriculum lines we could run, I knew what I needed to try to throw at them for the remaining 4 days to see, is this worth their time or not?
Yep.
And by the time we hit Friday, we were talking about the next class. So we set the next one up, and we did those, and we did the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that, and it became almost to the point where I was, living out of my suitcase, coming home, dumping it out in the washing machine with my parachutes, and throwing those in the closet and grabbing my gun case to go back out the door. And it was getting to the point where I needed to make a choice. I cannot be, so the analogy Joe makes with this pie chart of all the things we got to be good at.
Yep.
So it would go like gun trip, gun trip, gun trip, jump trip. That first jump trip wasn't my best jump trip. It wasn't the best class I could put forward.
Okay.
And I mean, I've got 10,000 jumps at this point. I've had lots of hard openings. The test jumping was hard on me. My neck and back, at that time.
Yeah, you're on the clock with that stuff.
There's definitely
a time limit.
There's a life cycle of how long one can put out at that level and still be on top of their game and be relevant. And I made a choice to really dedicate and move over to this side. That the gun classes, the long range, we were doing things that were significant and contributing to their bottom line in the amount of time that we had. And I liked those classes. And I was coming up with things as I was exposed to more things that were not traditionally open source, and being presented with more complicated problems that weren't quite so obvious, and coming up with some alternative workflows that
for different mission sets or whatever else.
Yeah. And here are some solutions to those problems.
Got it.
So I kind of walled off from what everybody else was doing, and this is how I would approach it. And I applied my experience of what I did with aviation beforehand to these things. Some were good. They used them. Some were not. They could do without it and got what they needed in other places. Yeah. So it worked. And that's really what I focused on. And I wanted to be as good as one could be as a precision rifle instructor.
Such a fascinating journey. I mean, I don't know any jumpers really. So that's the thing. I mean, I've met guys coming from the mill, but not somebody that made a living just doing that.
Not a great living, man. There was a lot of years in a tent.
Sounds sexy. It sounds sexy, but I imagine, there's some stuff there that I'm sure that's a whole other podcast. But so this thing evolves, right? And so you're working with several, different organizations, and you're helping them evolve in the ways that they need to evolve at the time for the things that they needed to get, probably in a very accelerated type of way. Yeah, like compressed. It's probably a good way. It's like, hey, we have a problem. Or like, we have this thing we have to do, and and we haven't done this before. Or
so that happened a lot on the jump side. I mean,
that's what I mean.
There were some very rapid requirements that needed some adjustments to existing products that we worked some things and did them and changed them. And then I would submit those examples for further evaluation internally, and I would get the feedback that it was okay, great, yeah, make more of those. It's like, cool, so just send those back and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It's like, no, those were good. No, I need those back really. It's like they're not available anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Check.
Let's move forward.
Sure.
So I mean, again, like just in how I, initially phrased that, just that you have a very interesting background that I'd only very recently learned about. And so I'm taking this all the way back to the beginning, and this, like, I got to know more. There was this mystery that existed for me, and you just handled a good deal of it. And I'd heard some of you mention this podcast that you'd been on, and so I did listen to that, and I was like, well, okay, that answers a lot of questions for me, but I didn't really understand the tie-ins as much until we sort of got here today, and
Sure.
in the last couple of days, and learned a little bit more. So then there's this whole thing with Fred Baker.
Yep.
So let's talk about Fred Baker.
Fred was a jump student. When he was still active, he came through a class in 08, 09 timeframe, and Fred was my people, man. He was when we split the class up with the other adjunct instructors. Fred was in my group, and like he was just a sponge. I mean, the guy was professional. Didn't necessarily put off that, like, I'm here because I like skydiving. This is part of my job. I need to get this done, so I need to know as much as I possibly can in the time we have. He was a pro, absolutely, and he. Yep. Explain it to me, break it down. Okay. And I go and I perform and put out. Fred and I were just, we're a really good fit from the beginning.
Gotcha.
From the get-go. So over the years, Fred and I probably have 250 jumps together in trips. Our typical profile for a class was 50 jumps in a week.
Damn.
5 before lunch, 5 after lunch, 5 days. And that's how it went. And I did a few where he would come down to Florida, his team up in North Carolina, we would jump there, or even some other stuff we did later on in his career, out west in the mountains, jumping into the trailheads and high altitude drop zones in the mountains. Fred was just always a top 5 performer in a whole group of folks. And obviously, I mean, when it was starting to become dual role, when we would shoot and jump or one over the other, he performed very well on that side too. So this is a very instructable, teachable guy.
There's a draw.
For sure. I mean, Fred was a professional in the things he does organically and things he did, but he was also a professional student. Fred knew how to come take a class and not go there to bias confirm. He was not there for validation of something he thought worked. He's like, I'm going to try everything people are showing me, and if it makes me better, I'll take what it works, and if it doesn't, I'll put that on the side.
That's a coach's dream.
And that's how he was. Like, I mean, there was no incentive for him to be adversarial or push back, and there was no ego there. He didn't care. Like Fred only cared about getting better and being able to support his mates, his team, and getting the job done and representing.
That's what I think for people that come from that world, that might sound a little foreign, quite frankly.
To some extent,
yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I haven't come from that world. I don't know. Talked to a lot of people, listened to a lot of stories, and I know there's a lot of pushback a lot of times, and there's a lot of like, let's just get through this, man, because and again,
I'm under no illusions, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
who are you, right?
Sure,
like, you're not on this team. Like, who are you? Who is this guy coming in from the outside?
Absolutely, and I mean, every single trip, I knew every single time, I'm under no illusions that the entire group of students wanted to be at my class. they wanted to be at the other class or somewhere else. Their head was just not into it at all. They didn't like jumping, or they didn't like shooting. This style of marksmanship, it wasn't their thing. So I was working with the trip leader to deliver what was expected of me. I had requirements from the contract, and I have to provide that service.
Yep.
And it was rewarding to win over as many as possible by the end of the week, that they learned something. And I did my best to spend that last day visiting with each individual student. What is confusing? What can we do better? What are you struggling with in a non-confrontational way?
I experienced that today.
Try and make sure that everybody, if there's one last thing that I might need to revisit from a lecture earlier, or I need to draw another diagram with my fingers in the sand, something like that.
Right.
What can I do to try to clear it up a little more to where you've got this? And Fred was just always like, nope, got it. I'm there. I picked up what you were putting down. This and this, not so much for me. This, awesome.
That's great. That's another thing from a coach's perspective, is getting that immediate feedback and like, nope, you did this. I got all this. I got all that. Like, we're good. So, yep. I mean, and if you have repeated like touches with people like that, you get to know who's feeding you bullshit and who's being real.
For sure.
No doubt, again, going back to the mystery and, and learning about you guys a little bit, and we'll talk to Fred, one-on-one in a bit here, but there's a little bit of mystery around the guy. But I have to, after spending a few days with him, like, dude's like, he's all fucking business. All business all the time. So if he's got a question, he's gonna ask it. If he's got something to say, he's gonna say it when the time is right, and he's gonna say it in a way that you'll be like, oh, that guy's been thinking about that a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. For what comes out of Fred's mouth did not just pop up that in that moment. He created something, thought about it. I'm gonna fit this in when appropriate, and it is direct.
So, I mean, that gives background, right? And a little context to the next question, which is, so when does this become a business with you and Fred with regard to reaching out and touching all these different groups of people that you guys you're touching right now? And as a civilian, obviously, that's the group that I'm in. But when I was out there on the line, there are current military out there, law enforcement, civilians. You guys are running the gamut. So when does it turn into that for you guys?
When Fred retired.
Okay.
It was really he was very interested and hungry to contribute to the bottom line of everybody. Military contracts are still on the table. Praecore maintains military contracts right now, but it was important to Fred that we provided a version of that service to anybody that needed it and would be receptive. So I handle the back room, and I deal with enrollment and getting the right folks into the classes, and then Fred and I team up together to do the open enrollment. There was a period of time, a long interval, that I held everything back. None of my classes, I didn't do any open enrollment. They were all for that community only. And it was a solid 10 years of no open enrollment classes. And it wasn't until he came out and just said, we should do this.
We need to do this.
We're looking at the state of the country and things that are going on. And it was things that he felt like could make a difference. And usually he's right, and there's no reason to question him. He was. The folks we have that come to these classes, already, several of them have been in situations that hopefully the time we spent together made a difference, and that's what got them home safe.
So I wonder, like, as much trust as you have in Fred and he has in you, when he brings this to the table for you, is that tough for you?
Nope.
No?
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. I trust Fred implicitly. So It's if he says it's right, whether it's what I'm feeling or not, I'll try anything twice.
Yeah, so the next question that comes up is, a lot of people, I've talked to several instructors actually that have been in this, some on the show and others offline, just with the challenge that they have in making that transition out of working those government contracts and working with very specific individuals in a very specific way, training very specific things. The challenge that they have of, kind of transitioning in and going like, okay, so if I go out here and I start doing this, is there going to be any repercussion? Is there going to be any blowback for that? And what does that do with my status or my trust with the community? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I definitely had some apprehension of an element of that. There was a concern of selling out, quote unquote. The configuration I rolled in was very under the waterline for a really long time. Folks had no idea, my competitors, if I was even still in business. It was just a little hearsay here and there. I'd pop up at a SHOT Show or a SOFIC or something like that to have a meeting with an end user group. And I mean, it was definitely a bit of concern that once we come out, it's cat's out of the bag now. Here we are. But the needs of individual groups, the fundamentals are the same for sure.
Yeah.
But the application is very different. And I think we compartmentalize things the right way. And the magic of being able to work with him is that I stay in my lane. I know what I can speak to and what is just conjecture or speculation. It's not conjecture or speculation for him. He doesn't have to imagine what it takes to do things in his configuration from work. So I can stop talking and Fred can speak up and take over at that point.
Strong combo.
With the application.
Strong combo.
So,
how's that being received?
Seems good so far.
Yeah,
I'm definitely enjoying it. I have not had any of the things I was apprehensive about.
Oh, good.
There's not been any of the things I was concerned about once upon a time. But also, it's a different time and place. Once upon a time, OPSEC and PERSEC was a big deal.
You're right.
I never took pictures in my classes. I mean, none of that was, you could not. Social media, if you look at the personal pages, there's no photos of work and places I went and things I was doing. I couldn't do any of that.
That's the mystery.
And like the ironic thing is, I mean, like there are tribute pages and organizations that collect pictures and imagery from activities and events and certain things, both training and operational.
I've heard about these, yeah.
I'm now kind of a little new to social media. It's not really something I'm not very good at this point, and I'm trying about as hard as I want to try with it. I try to keep up where I can. But some of them, I mean, these guys have got more photos of my classes over the last decade than I have. And I'm like, I mean, I recognize locations in some of these pictures, and I'm like, well, where do you guys get this stuff?
Who was taking pictures, and when was this even happening?
It's a little bit, I mean, I'm scratching my head because it's not my camera. I don't have that photo, but like I remember that day, and it is funny. So I'm glad. I mean, at least, I preserved, that bit of it, and it was their business to decide what
I can appreciate that.
Suitable for distribution. And I don't talk about a lot of that.
Yeah,
and
I get it. Totally get it.
They paid for it. It's not a marketing thing for me, and they got the service they asked for me, and the exchange was made, and that's nobody's business.
That's an interesting perspective. I mean, obviously, you mentioned OPSEC and things like that, security, but that's an interesting perspective because I don't think that a lot of people trying to do things in this industry think about that. Partly because they don't have to, because they haven't done the things that you've done, but also everything is an opportunity to do something from a marketing perspective, right? And I'm guilty of that. Like, but at the same time, like, I'm just trying to get the word out. This isn't like it's not like a cover or like me backpedaling here, but I think it's like, if I'm going to put something up, I just want to, I just want to know that it's going to be helpful for somebody.
Sure.
Right. At some level. Yeah. Sometimes I put some stuff up there that, just kind of keeps people, I guess, maybe in touch with like what I'm doing outside of that. So that there's a human element to it, or, maybe people can make a connection to it differently. But, what you're saying there with regard to respecting the people that you were working for at the time, you're not trying to exploit that for your own endeavors.
That's a one-way street, man. You do that, and it's a one-way valve. Once you sell out that way, I don't believe there's any coming back.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's not my speed.
Next question then would be like, what are you learning in this new journey?
The biggest one, the first takeaway from like immediately within the first like class or two was that before in the contracts, I understood, and my ego absolutely accepted it, that not everybody here wants to be here. They're on orders.
Mm-hmm.
They're here because they have to. Everyone that's here is choosing to spend their hard-earned money to come listen to what we have to say, and I am humbled and respect that very much. There are choices of where to go train, and they pick us when they pick us, and it's, man, that's powerful. Our classes are not inexpensive. I choose locations that come with facility fees that are not holes in the wall in the woods. These are our top-notch facilities, places I have taken military clients in the past, and it's not lost on me that there's a metric to that people like, okay, this is a little more expensive than what I'm used to paying to go out and train for a couple of days. I make sure that everybody feels like they got that value going home, and it is humbling. They choose us, and we have so much repeat business. Folks that have trained with us a few times come back.
Yeah, we got that here this weekend. Yeah,
we have a few repeat offenders. That are in the class here, and I expect to see some of them once again in another POI. But yeah, that's one of the biggest takeaways is that it is definitely humbling that we are chosen, and there are options. There are other things they can choose to go and do, and it is really refreshing to me that there is this peer group of instructors that are kind of in this plus or minus 5 years or so age. Got a couple of them here this weekend.
Yep.
I mean, some real powerhouses in their own right.
That is true.
I mean, Mark Smith and Blake Flannery for sure. But I mean, we've mentioned Joe Dawson a few times. I mean, he's a great perspective and rock and constant to bounce things off of. John Dufresne, who you had on the show before. Yep. Chris Woomer from Bail Solutions. Yep. He's another.
Haven't met him yet, but very impressed with.
You will, man.
Yeah.
He's
his name keeps coming up.
It's not possible to not mention him, but this group is we keep each other honest, and we would fully expect the rest of us, if we came out with something that was clown shoes,
somebody's going to call you out.
We would be called out and kept straight for sure, and accountable.
Yeah, I think that's why people come here, man. I mean, so here's another. Quick takeaway from, what I picked up this week too, is that you're trying, no, that's not the right way to phrase this. What I get is that you're trying to inspire people to want to take this information and provide it to other people.
Yeah.
In a way that's meaningful. And there happens to be, an individual here this week who works for a particular agency who's found himself here many times.
Yep.
This is not his first rodeo with you guys, but he's found himself in a leadership role.
Sure.
Likely, largely, but not completely, because there's a lot of things that go into being a leader, but largely because he has come here and what he's learned and what he's been able to take back to his community, his very specific community that he works with, and that you're giving him an opportunity to spread his wings a little bit and understand what it feels like to be a coach.
Sure.
And as a coach who came up, right? Because you don't just walk out one day. A lot of people think that, again, I say this all the time on the show, it's a very low barrier of entry. Start an Instagram, say you're a firearms instructor, and boom.
You got it.
Yeah, you're good. You're done, right? But giving people an opportunity, and that's not who this guy is. This guy's not doing that. He's working with with a particular group of people, but giving them an opportunity to experiment a little bit and have that opportunity. It's not a grooming thing. It's a mentorship thing.
Sure.
Maybe you put it that way, but you're coaching coaches. And I think that says a lot for, you guys as a group, that, somebody that's an aspiring coach and is growing up, so to speak, in this world that he's operating or working in, that he's already been bestowed some level of leadership. Like, hey, man, you know more than we know, or you know things differently than we know. We want to know more, so we're going to give you this, and he can come here and practice his skills so that he can go back and give that to other people. That is the legacy, right? That to me is like uber powerful. I mean, for a civilian, coming into it, this guy I'm talking about is not. But for me as a civilian, to go back and maybe be able to give this to, the people within my immediate community and just say, hey, here's what I learned, right? And that's what the show is about, right? That's what the show is about, is like, hey, let's get the message out here. In order to get what you guys are providing, you got to come. You have to do it. But to give people a sense outside of what they may be able to get from, the limited exposure that is available on places like social media or whatever, and however much time you aren't putting into it, this is an important thing for me. Like, that's a mission for me. So again, on this other side is that you're inspiring coaches to be better coaches, and it's proven itself out. People are being, they're being propped up for the things that they're coming back from, because it's very practical in their realm, whatever that is. Yeah. And that is something that I think every coach should aspire to be like, so, or to do, is to inspire other coaches and invite other people in and give them opportunities. I come from a different world, but I would not have ever accomplished what I ever accomplished in my career without somebody else giving me an opportunity to cut my teeth in that kind of a way, like, and trust me to provide a little information here. Hey, here's what I want to do. So here's my particular situation. We won't talk about what's happening here this weekend, but like, we bring in a new coach to the gym or whatever, and he's cutting his teeth, right? Mm-hmm. I don't immediately throw him in front of a new client, right? There's some shadowing that happens, right? First off, you have to experience it. So you're going to be a client first, right? So we're going to take you through that, right? And then there's some shadowing that's involved. Like, I want you to kind of stand by. I'm going to share with you what I'm about to share. Here's the things I want you to observe during that period. Fuck everything else. Don't think about anything else right now. I want you to pick this up, right? And I want you to watch out for a couple of things. And then there's, after that happens, okay, what did you take away? What did you pick up from that? Then it's maybe giving them an opportunity to be in front of a group to maybe present a little information while standing by to support them in their process, right? And knowing that they're not going to be perfect at this, right? No matter how much preparation they do or how much training they have, they're going to. This is their first opportunity. It's like going out to the range for the first time with your magnified optic. Like, I can tell you all the things, but until you go out there and do it, like, you're never going to know what you don't know, right? Sure. And then be able to provide the feedback. That's what being a coach's coach is like. And I've seen and witnessed a little bit of that this weekend too, which for me is very inspiring. Because as I go to other classes and I do other things, I think there are people that may be aspiring to be coaches someday, but may not have that opportunity. And I think that speaks to the things that you guys have done over the longer term, where you have these repeat customers, and you have these people come back, and they see the impact, right? And so they come back again, and they come back again, and then you guys are willing to give, right? And you don't make money off that, right? Like, no. It's in the interest of making people better and staying in front as Praecore.
That's the idea. I believe there is a much smaller pool of folks that are into this training, into training in general. I think that there's a very small group of Americans that are out there propping up the training market and keeping it happening. And the way I analogize it when I discuss it with Joe or anybody else, from the guys I mentioned before,
Right.
we have custody of a group of 14 for 2 days, and then they're going to be with Duffy or Woomer or somebody else next weekend or a month from now or whatever. We're just borrowing them for a little while, and these people pluck the nuggets from this class or the next few they take, and the pool of individuals that we're sharing over the course of a year. I don't think it's very many folks. I think it's a pretty small group of individuals.
I agree with you.
And if we're not doing that, if we're not giving the individuals that are interested to go back home to their department or agency or unit the ability to convey information, we have a very short life expectancy.
Yeah, yep.
It's short-sighted. I'm looking 20 years down the road of what does the training industry look like. We need more trainers. We need more trainers to inspire people to get off the bench and stop being mediocre and start taking this stuff seriously. And the more educated coaches and instructors and outlets, the more accessible the training is. Good instruction, not just any instruction, because I think like Mike Pannone over at CTT Solutions says it best. The bit with like, is any training better than no training? No, it's not. There's some.
I think we're learning that in spades.
For sure. I mean, there's definitely some bad messages out there. So I would much rather share with the main ideas and things that are important to me and Fred with someone that's willing to, the right person with integrity, and we have some trust bases we've built up over time with. I don't need kudos. He doesn't need to name us, but he's doing it right. He does it well on his own. We've watched him enough. We've seen him enough. So if developing that individual as an instructor, not for us, he doesn't need to be an AI,
right?
But for himself, going back to his organization organically and making them better, because it's not convenient enough, or with the schedule or the availability for them to. We can't train everybody. The instructors I named, none of us could be at it 52 weeks a year and get through all of it.
Right.
We can't do it.
No, there's way more pie than that, man.
There is. Yeah. So why try to coin and bogart certain things is just, it's nonsense to me. So, if folks are knowledgeable and they can get it done and they can show others how to do the things that we're doing and other guys are doing, and they're doing it well and doing it safely, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways to approach that. So there's the abundancy mindset versus the scarcity mindset, right? There's a little bit of that. Then there's also the what's my responsibility to this community and to the people that I'm training, and understanding who those people are and what their impact is going to be, or that ripple effect is going to be down the line, right?
Sure.
I just had something shared with me actually by Mark Smith. It was pretty impactful.
He's got a lot of those.
I know. The dude is full of one-liners, and they're brilliant. And it's helpful that he doesn't wear shoes and that it comes with that accent. I just feel like I'd be in a different place in life if I had that accent. I'm just saying. But that said,
he'll pull it out of you if you got a little bit of.
I was just joking. Like
he'll get
I was just joking with like the people back home. If I come home with an accent from here, like please don't make fun of me. It's contagious. But no, just that the ripple effect that you can have, without the expectation and not knowing what's going to happen at the end of that, when that ripple hits the shore,
sure,
wherever it might be. But you need to understand that it will have an effect, and that if you're keeping it too close to the chest, like you're never going to make the impact that you hope to make. And there's another piece of this and I get it. Like I get this. Like there's a safety mechanism that arises with like, well, if I put this out there, then somebody else is going to steal it, and then they're going to use it, and then they could be making money. That's the scarcity side versus the abundance side, which there's way more pie than I can even control or even have here.
Right.
So if I enter into the situation with doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing, and
with the right people,
so I maintain integrity and continuity there,
Yep.
then you don't have to worry about that other shit.
Nope.
Because if you're focusing on those two things, again, continuity or integrity first, and continuity in the information that's being put out there and the people that you're bringing in and how you're training and the communications that you have and all the things that go into this, like the downstream effects of this can be immense, and it's going to take time. And so if you're looking for an immediate gratification from this, from like I see this guy out there teaching, he's being successful, but he didn't drop my name. That sucks. Like, I hate, like, what a dick. Like, if that's what because he learned something from you and now he's being able to pass this on or whatever, and he's doing it in a good way, why does that fucking matter?
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. But so I hear this like, well, are you afraid people are going to copy you? And so like I have to keep this. I don't want to hand out any outlines to my curriculum or, whatever else. Like you're afraid people are going to steal. Like, dude, if that's what you're afraid of, like
you're on thin ice.
You're already losing, man. You're way behind the power curve at this point. Yeah.
The only reason, not to put out something is because over on this side with precision rifle, the tech, the industry, the curve is straight up.
Right.
What we have with software and what the optics are doing, what the bullets are doing. From year to year, all the new stuff we have we have at our disposal. It's just straight up. The only reason not to put something out is because it's going to be dated quickly. Hard skills are hard skills. That stuff
stay in front.
That survives, and we will that we could put out no problem. But Fred and I have no Patreon, no distributive learning subscription based platform that we hide behind. If I can help you, I will. If you're going to come to a class and I have to take time away from my family and leave, it's going to cost you.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to rent the facilities that it takes to do this the right way, which I've seen right, I know what right looks like. I've been doing it for a long time. That's going to have to cost you.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of it, if you have a question, you can't make it out to me, I'm happy to discuss. What do you got?
Mm-hmm.
What's your problem? And let's, whatever I can do, I'll try to help. Fred does the same thing. He puts out a treasure trove of information on the regular, and there's no subscription or something for that. So.
Right. There's no wall that you have to get through to get there. I think that's an interesting, note to take as you're looking out there. And again, that's the interesting part about Fred for me. Again, that's a conversation between, he and I later, but just like the information that he does put out and how much he does have to say, like what's out there. And he's not holding back.
No, he's not.
If you look at that and maybe you don't agree with everything he has to say, or, you don't like everything, that's fine. He's fine with that too.
Yeah.
I've learned that. But it's there for, if he's doing what the intention is to help, right? And to provide different perspective.
And that's
period.
It's abundantly clear. The only time it costs you money is if he has to leave his family.
Right.
And I'm the same way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's an interesting part about this industry right now, and just I think where people are trying to find their way and establish their value and what it is they're doing, how far they stretch, how far they don't, all those things.
If your objective is to be here to make money, you've already lost.
Yeah,
if your objective is to be here to make a difference, and you really have something to contribute to the discussion, you're going to be fine.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's where are you coming from? What's the intention? Kind of what's the...
And I think, that shows up eventually. There are organizations and individuals that are obtuse from what works and what's accepted just for the sake of being an anomaly and being different.
Right.
Not because it's better, not because they even believe in it, just because it's controversial.
Right.
It gets clicks, it gets likes, it gets attention. And honestly, I don't appreciate some of it because it makes it confusing for the newcomer.
Yeah.
And the static of trying to put sunshine on certain things that I think are just maybe not the most efficient way, or the efficient gear or software or whatever else to get from point A to point B. It's a thing, but I mean, it's my pity party here. Every other instructor in every other space with every other shooting discipline deals with the same thing. So I'm not unique, and this isn't an organic problem in precision rifle. But yeah, I mean, I think there are plenty of other looks at things that are just obtuse to try to be unique in their own way, because
it's flashy, whatever.
For whatever reason, their curriculum or what they bring to the table, isn't unique enough. And I think honestly, the people that are at the level that are doing it, they're good enough shooters, they're good enough instructors. They could just be themselves without having to do that.
Right.
It's unnecessary and unfortunate, but it is what it is.
So earlier you sort of brought up the circle of guys and trying to influence things maybe a little bit differently, and the people that you're talking to, again, like there's in what you're doing on your social media versus what you're not doing, and you're trying. I hear that holding a camera in front of my face was very fucking weird for a long time. Like, this is way outside of my comfort zone. I've said that before. It was for a long time. It's taken a lot of practice and a lot of just like, oh my God, here we go again, to keep doing it over and over, just taking the reps to try and get better at it. But I think there are a lot of coaches out there that are trying to get better, and they really want to, and they're coming from a good place, right? They have, their heart's in the right place, their intentions are in the right place. They are, they have sought out a certain amount of instruction, or whatever, but they're still very fresh, and they're learning new things. And
sure,
and everybody makes mistakes. You mentioned the first jump class you went to, like, oh, I had this thing. This is what I thought we were doing, but after day one, you're like, okay,
yeah,
we got to reapproach this. So that is part of the journey, right? We talk a lot about that, the coaching and the journey that people are going through, and the trouble that they find themselves in sometimes, and making statements that are absolute, and other people are just making stupid statements, and or doing things out of desperation, right, to gain attention, follows, whatever the case is, shilling themselves out, taking money from a company because it seems like a good idea at the time. There's all these pitfalls,
sure,
right, of getting into it. And then there's other people, other guys. There's sort of an age group as well. I'll put it out there, like, let's just say they're early 40s, right? So I'm not going to say they're advanced in age, but they're wise, right? And because they've been through a certain journey of some kind, and they haven't been through, each journey is individual. Everybody's had their own experiences. But I wonder, is there a way to communicate to some of the younger coaches, or provide some type of, I don't know, platform or venue for people to get together and learn more from those in the business, much like yourself, that have had these experiences? And while you may coach something very specific at this specific time, you've coached a lot of things. And you also understand the business aspect, right? Whether that be from military contracting to the private sector, and anything in between. You've had multiple businesses, you've done different things. Is there a way to bring people together to bring coaches in? And there's a consumer aspect of this, but if I'm looking down the line, let me make sure I put this together the right way. If I'm looking down the line, like, the coaches have the audience, right? They have their own audience, right? Which is the larger audience. So is there a way to bring that audience together, that being the coaches, and get them into a place where they can learn these things from a group of people, not that's affiliated with some organization, right? I have ideas about this, but I'm curious about what yours are in that sense, because I feel like that's kind of the next step here. Not that you can codify or say this is the standard for teaching, this is what you should be doing, because, again, going back to pie chart, there's all the different things.
Sure.
I'm from the fitness industry, and they've tried to do this, and so I'm very, very, I would say I'm acutely aware of what it looks like when people try and do that outside of a singular institution like the military, law enforcement, whatever.
It's tough.
It is tough.
It is tough. I mean, I know it has. I'm not new here. I've been quiet in junior and kept my mouth shut.
That's what I mean.
And worked.
Yeah.
From 12, 14 years ago here, doing my thing, staying in my lane, and not rocking the boat where it didn't need to be rocked. And I was just true to myself, my mission, what I wanted to do. And I'm not trying to be anybody else. I mean, I'm trying to be the best version of myself. And that's either going to work or it's not. And that's what I would tell them all to do. Trying to emulate someone else's swagger and style and whatnot, man, that shows up. People figure it out and smell it on you fast. I know there have been attempts and discussions by some very seasoned instructors and other coaches that you've mentioned that hierarchy of maybe it's time to look at like some form of a governing body over the top of all of this. And I'm not really going to be a part of anything like that. It's not really interesting to me. I kind of think we need the freedom to just do us and let the market suss it out and figure it out itself. But if I had to sum it up, if there are younger up and comers that are think they want to be where we are now and think that's a good thing, because I'll tell you, it's not easy. I mean, none of it is. It's constant work. Like the joke, I quit my 40-hour-a-week job and now I own my own business.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Now I work 24/7.
Yeah,
it is. It's weekends. It's late. I live on the East Coast. I'm taking phone calls from other time zones, other parts of the world all the time. And my wife's used to it. My home life is used to it. Yes, I'm constantly being pulled away to attend to details with contracts or classes or anything else. But just go where you're wanted, not where you want to be. Don't assume where you want to be is where you belong. Go where you're wanted. Be yourself, and it will happen naturally if it's meant to be. Nobody that ended up in this space was talking with Mark on his podcast a little while ago about this. Everybody I know that does this stuff and does it well, it just kind of happened to them. It happened to them. They did not make this happen. They had the raw material and the aptitude and everything that was necessary to maximize the opportunity that was presented. But these aren't there's no college degree to go get to find this thing.
No formula.
There is not. There is no formula. It is very circumstantial and happenstance, and it just you're either up for it when the opportunity presents itself or you're not. And how you do with that opportunity and what you make of it is what dictates whether you get another one. And that is my best advice is to say, or my input on that concept is just not try to force it. Let it happen.
Yeah, I see people trying to make it happen really fast too. And there's like an expectation, I think, that because so and so did it this way and this is the way they're doing it, this is the way I have to do it, and I should be given or awarded this, or I'm entitled to this, like
entitlement
right now.
and the idea that I should be able to have it because I want it. Well, it doesn't work that way. I mean,
it's like we talked about this, like being accurate out there today. As much as I may have wanted it, like it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work that way. You got to put in the work. It's like fitness or being faster, or whatever else, and on the shooting range, whatever. Like you can't buy that. Like you can want it all you want. You still have to do the work, and it is a journey. And I mean, where are you at this point? Like in your journey, like how many years? 20?
At this point, I mean, with the test jumping and what led up to it, I mean, it's over 20 years at this point.
Yeah, and we got people that are 2 years in, 3 years in
that aren't happy.
Right. Like, bro, slow down.
Take a breath.
Yeah, take a breath. Maybe reach out. Maybe get outside your comfort zone a little bit. And I don't mean that from a shooting perspective. For me, like I look at this from a business development perspective, and getting in front of and being in the room with people where we're not necessarily talking about shooting. Right? That seems to be all that's talked about all the time. But I'll take this all the way back to the beginning of our discussion. When we sit down after, we're not talking about shooting. all the time. Yeah, that's part of the conversation some of the time. We're talking about gear, there's equipment, there's cool shit being pulled out. People are kind of telling their stories or whatever, but it's the conversations around that that are that provide insight to how you might handle the shooting, right? Not in the business of shooting, whether you're a consumer of it, right? A consumer of the instruction, or whether you're the instructor. And again, like if you're not out there doing that and reaching out to people that are doing the things that you think you should be doing now or want to do in the future, that's on you, man. Yeah. That is on you. That's the same shit you're telling your students, about becoming a better shooter. And so I think, like, I have some ideas about this, but I think that there is a way to maybe do things maybe like on a regional basis, not a governing body. Now, I think that's a bad idea. Like that, I've watched that happen before, and anytime
it ruins everything. It
ruins everything. Anytime anybody tries to govern anything, it's a shit show, right? So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about putting together, events, or putting together, let's just say, I don't know whether it's symposiums, summits, or whatever, where there are like-minded people all in the same room that are all trying to get to the same place, or trying to provide the same thing, and can exchange ideas or listen to other people and their own ideas. Because right now there's not a good format for that. Unless you jump into a class, you travel across the country. Like if I'm in California and I want to get some Mike and, some Mike and Fred, I got to get on a plane and I got to go.
Yeah.
And that might be hard for people.
It is.
Versus putting together something where, hey, turns out Mike and Fred and John and Joe and, Chris and all those guys, Alex or whoever, are all in the same place at the same time. And we can all, benefit from one another. And by the way, I'm not even talking about fucking shooting. I'm just talking about providing like an environment where people can have these discussions, and maybe even like offer a 2-hour talk on how to build a curriculum the right way, how to build a business for the long term. I'm kind of putting this out there. I think there may be even there's a huge opportunity there, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd be open to it. I mean, it depended on, the personalities that we would integrate. And I mean, the folks you just mentioned, I would welcome, any, calling it an opportunity is an understatement. The privilege to get together and collaborate with those folks on anything. We're down. We've all said this. All have said, hey, anything ever happens, one of you guys to step out, happy to jump in and help out with a class, or teaming up at some point down the road when we can line the schedules up. We're all kind of figuring out. Duffy's a little ahead of us with doing his own thing, and the guy trains super hard, and Woomer's got a really heavy calendar as well. Mm-hmm. Joe is getting established with what hosts he's using, where he's going, and things like that. I think we all just need to be a little patient and let the patterns develop, and then figure out
what people want,
what people want, and when we could do it, when would be convenient. And everybody's got families, and that's number one, and that's most important, and we're prioritizing those things. But after the families and after the primary businesses, what white space is left?
What's out there?
Can we, come together at some point and do something? Yeah, I think that is a very realistic possibility in the future to see collaborative efforts. Maybe not necessarily with all of us in the same time, in the same months. Maybe we have to do a few here and there, but I think it's happening, and I think other instructors that we're not necessarily networked in together with are doing that in other areas.
I've seen that.
That shooter symposium has been pretty popular, and I haven't been. Some of our students have, and there were some positive experiences and some that could have been better from what they said coming back from that. But I think it's definitely it speaks to the spirit of what you're describing, and it's a match of both the instructors. A lot of top shelf instructors go out there, and a lot of top shelf manufacturers that provide everything from holsters to soft goods to equipment and weapons and everything else. And that is a real destination event for someone to go and get a little bit of everything in a week long, event. I probably wouldn't be interested in folding in with something that's already so established and has so many names already, because it's kind of saturated, in my opinion.
That was my next question.
I would. I mean, literally, if all the guys we discussed called up, hey, we're going,
right.
Are you in for one? Okay, yeah, fine, right. Sure. Yeah. And I'd probably come to attend, man. Hang out and run the line for some of them and help and hang. It'd be good. I'll always find an excuse to do something that's not stupid behind closed door meeting related. SHOT Show was very little time to right. actually FaceTime with the individuals. It was just
the challenge there.
Passing.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
But it's a job. I mean, this industry. I mean, people see this as what they see of it. They don't realize how much work goes in behind the scenes, and it is constant phone calls, emails, DMs, everything to keep the train going. And I'm open for sure, and I would be surprised if the others weren't as well.
I think that's my point, or that's the kind of what I'm digging at. Really, is just to maybe test the temperature, and how do those guys out there they're staying busy, right? You guys are staying busy doing different stuff to provide something different to the consumer or the end user, and the end user in this case being the coaches, because we talk a lot on the show about the shit show that exists out there with people that say they're coaches that aren't, and any day of the week you can scroll through your Instagram feed or whatever and see all the bad stuff that's happening.
Sure.
But I think there's so many good things that are happening, and that all that behind the scenes stuff, I think, is a lot of the reason there's a misunderstanding about that. And so that's why you see maybe so much of the other bad stuff, right? Is people just, they don't understand what they're getting themselves into. They don't really understand it. And then they can't walk back whatever it is that they did that was fucked, right? Or it was, they called attention to themselves with the intention of doing the right thing, but it was the wrong thing, which is it's a very easy thing to do in today's day and age. So, I appreciate you answering the question. Again, it was just sort of like I said, testing the temperature to kind of understand, where are guys like you in the thought process with how you approach the industry as a whole, kind of going forward. And that's the next question is like, as this thing continues to evolve, we'll continue to have things like SHOT Shows, shooter symposiums, and things like that. You'll continue to run your classes and do stuff. What is the next step? Like, where does to get better as a whole, what needs to happen?
Well, I believe with our repeat customers, it is to provide them more options. Basically, we have 3 choices on our menu at this point.
It's like In-N-Out Burger.
It's but smaller.
Is there any secret stuff you can do though?
We've got there is more on tap that can be done, and precision rifle and distance carbine, both Block 1 and Block 2. I mean, really, those are the 3 SKUs at the moment that are available that we're running.
Great.
And precision rifle is really where my heart is. Fred loves it too. We both enjoy it very much, but we are having a lot of fun on this distance carbine side because it's available really dead to any shooter.
Yeah,
anybody can come do this. It's not hard to meet the minimum requirements to come get in this class, and there is more on tap now because of the skill set that Fred has that far exceeds anything I understand how to do in other areas. Yep. As more folks from his organization retire and availability opens up, I do believe the move will eventually evolve into offering things that we do not right now.
Yep.
I'm probably not going to be directly involved as an instructor or coach in those things. I know where the lines are in my lane, and I'm not here to fake the fun.
That's great, though. That's great that you get that.
I totally do. So what I do think eventually is that Praecore Performance Shooting is going to become my military contract entity because of the past performance. I've been in business since 2015. I have that standing track record. There are, public record searches. I've contracts I've done. It's
all there.
available. So a new command that reaches out to us can see I'm established and I've done these things. I still maintain it as my business vehicle for the consulting industry relationships that I do. But I think there is potentially a need as we move forward and evolve for another entity to be constructed, that additional personalities that come into the mix to offer these other curriculums, that there will be another business vehicle created to do that.
Exciting.
That, yes, Fred, partnership levels, for that, and some of the other boys that are coming in to get into the mix. So leveraging the relationships we got with the facilities and the hosts that we use.
That's a big deal, man.
It is. It's everything.
That could be huge. The limiting factor for a lot of people that do great things, that just don't have access to places.
Sure. You can say that you have all these curriculums and things you can do,
right,
and put it all on your customer to come up with the facility, the range requirements,
right,
shoot houses, breaching facilities, things like that. That's just not something that if you do not have that, you do not have a complete solution. I need to be able to hand you an answer when I'm solicited by an organization, a department, an agency, a unit that has a very specific task list, what contract we may be bidding on to execute something to that level. Wait and see, and we will see how it goes as additional individuals and what their appetite's like on the other side of service.
Right.
Do they want to pursue a professional degree, or do they want to teach and get in this space? And these are all pros as well. But I'm not going anywhere without Fred.
Gotcha.
So it's he is the other half of this equation for me. So
yeah, that's exciting, man. I'm excited to see where this thing goes for you guys. Again, we're only 2 days into 3 days, so there's a lot more for me to see, experience, and learn. I'm excited for it. I've been anticipating this for a very long time, and again, I shared already my frustrations on the first day, my discoveries. My discoveries and my aha moments from day 2, and there's something to be said for coming to the extended periods. Like so many people offering 6-hour day on a Saturday or whatever else, but there's so much to be gained from these extended extended courses. As you go through the different days, because it all builds on itself, but also it allows time to ask extra questions, to really dig in and understand things at a deeper level. And I think, I was talking with Blake a little bit about this too, and that is that and that's what he was discovering, that the feedback he was getting from his repeat users was that they really enjoyed being there for those 2 days. And the investment that they were making was look, man, if I got to travel all the way and I got to do all this, and for 1 day, it just makes sense. I'll pay the extra couple $100,
sure,
or whatever, to get the extra days, maybe spend the night in the hotel or whatever else, for the concentration of value and wealth that I'm able to extract. So that's a big thing. And I think, when I look out there and people are I'm just doing the one-off class, or I do, this class on Thursday and these classes on Saturday and Sunday and whatever else. I think there's value in that if you have something to provide.
Sure.
You mentioned Joe a couple of times. I spent 4 days with the dude. And God, 4 days felt like 4 weeks worth of information. There was so much there. It was so dense. And yeah,
and he was going easy on you.
Yeah, totally. the last couple of days I've been drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
But I love that environment because I can really dude, I'm just taking notes, I'm writing, I might not remember this in an hour, but I can always come back to it. The point of this is this you're enveloped, you're completely immersed in this immersive experience for a couple of days. I hope that those guys out there that have something to provide, like you guys, that can do this, do more of it, and that the consumer recognizes the value in, instead of taking 4 6-hour classes, save your money, do that. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but save your money and really invest wisely, ask your questions, do your research, shop wisely, but get into these things, because I think, what you end up taking away is way more than, for me, is way more than distance carbine, man.
I would encourage every instructor out there that does, whether we're aligned or not, to connect with your audience this way. It would be immensely better for me personally if I could leave my house in the morning, go to the range for 8 hours, and go home and sleep in my own bed like a normal job.
Right.
Like
9 to 5.
It would be immensely easier on my family and everything else to do it that way. No instructor, I think, would disagree. But I would say these immersive, these trips where I encourage the on-site lodging and things like that to be able to, we can stay together. This feels like the TDYs, the team contracts I used to run with the boys. We would go to Sun Valley, Idaho for a 5-day trip, a 5-day class, meaning I'm coming in the Friday or something before to meet the Advon. We'd be there for the weekend. The boys come in, we train. We're out there for 10, 11 days, living together, talking about this stuff, campfires and whiskey out back every night.
Right.
And that's where the good questions come up. And I really feel like that immersive destination trip, there are a lot of other instructors that like do that as like a, platinum level premier special event, where most of the time they teach their class and they go back and they're in their hotel room every night, and everybody goes home at 5 o'clock.
Right.
That's okay. And, it is definitely a way to be and a road show to run, but coming to and being selective about the facilities. I am, reached out to and sought out by hosts that have places to shoot all over the country. And, distance carbine is also a great test run for potential precision rifle locations to train as well.
That's a good point.
I'm never going to run a precision rifle at a place I've never seen. I don't care what you tell me it has. I cannot go on Google Earth and know what I've got. I got to see it. I need to get in the shooting position. I need to see, what do the impact areas look like? Is it safe? Does it meet my requirements? Does it have the distance I need? Does it have all the things you say it has? And, how many targets and what does it look like? Is it one little narrow lane cut in the trees, or is it a real immersive range that is more real world? I believe I need very little in the way of just nothing but distance to do distance carbine. So we can run this class in a lot of places that has, 600 or 700 yards. There's a lot to work with, but to run precision rifle, I need a lot more.
Right.
And I know that is going to be more expensive facility wise, but getting that hands on and doing a rep, seeing what the host is like, and what things they provide, what is the value there for the facility fee, that unfortunately I have to pass those costs on to the consumer.
Right.
So are you worth what I have to charge my student when I have to add on airfare and everything else for Fred and I to drag across the country to come train with you for a couple of days? And do I need to run 2 classes back to back to make it worth it because of how expensive certain things are? But yeah, I would suggest, if there is a way to make it work for other coaches and instructors and folks out there, do more trips this way if you can. And I understand. If guys have families and things like that, it's not easy, but my family, my wife is very supportive of what I'm doing. She's used to it. We were dating and I was doing this, on the front side of it. And, she's got her own TDYs that she has to go and do for launch campaigns and whatnot. So, we're very accustomed to living out of the suitcases and moving around, but it's, life's on the road. I just need to be near an airport.
Yeah, I think that's something that people should consider, coaches should consider, and again, the end user should consider in terms of how they invest their time. And again, research wisely and, do your homework, ask questions, reach out to people or whatever. But, again, the value that you can extract from being around the thing beyond just the class time, I think is really important. And it speaks to also building the community and, creating connection. So as a business owner, the more time, if you're doing a good job, the more time you can spend with people, the more touches you get, the more value that builds, and likely the more often you'll have them back. So, again, I don't want to beat that up. I've had so many experiences, and lately the ones I've had where they're a little bit more immersive, I think is the right term. Sure. I've gotten much more out of. Sure. And in so many ways.
Me too, man. Yeah. I mean, everything I've ever done like this.
So that's an important point too, from the coach's perspective, is like, if you got into this because you wanted to feel fulfilled, and you really had like a mission that you were really trying to help people get better, the more time you spend around them, the more the better propensity there is for making that happen. So think about those things. It's just, I don't know. Well, I don't know if that's an advice or a suggestion, but people should think about that. So, just in terms of wrapping this up, man, as we kind of move on and got to get into day 3 here tomorrow, with Praecore, with what you're doing, how people find out more about you. We talked a little bit about the social media thing and what you're doing and what you're not doing there. If they want to find out more about the classes, they want to find out more about you, understand kind of those offerings that you're providing, and when they should expect announcements and how they look on a calendar, stuff like that. Where do they go, dude?
Instagram right now. I mean, we're mindful about the present climate over there, and
well said. The climate,
the climate over there, and how tenuous that is at the moment, and backup counts and things like that are not the way. There are other platforms where sussing out to see if that's going to be the move. A bare bones Twitter account at the moment, but really, I mean, the speed of transmission of information, how fast it happens with social media. Yeah. It's quick on Instagram, and I'm confident that when we go loud with what we're doing, it
gets through.
It'll get out there, and but that's where to look. Follow the stories, follow the posts. Both Fred and I mean, we go hand in hand with these things when, when a class announcement comes up. But there are other things in play that we're doing behind the scenes that are not for public consumption, that I've got to manage as well. Sure. So those things are important. They take time.
They're priorities.
They are priorities as well. But this is very much a priority as well. It is. It didn't start that way for me. It was something to do and give it a try, but I enjoy it very much, and it's become very important to me. And it is an important undertaking that we get more educated firearms owners that can do this stuff and speak more intelligently, to have these debates, whether it's within their own families or in their communities and everything else. Like this generation has really got to pay attention and be careful for the foreseeable future to protect Second Amendment rights. And the more education, Mark Smith says it really, well, that we're having these discussions with someone from the opposing point of view. I already have the rights. I don't have to defend. Right, I shouldn't have to defend. Right. What is there? Be firm, but you're trying to change something that already is okay, and it's happening, and they're winning, and they're doing a lot of that every day. Rights are eroded, but also there are some wins on our side too.
There are. You have to count them too.
You've got to count them. Constitutional carry is happening in more and more states. It's a good thing to see, and we are getting there. If COVID taught me anything, this stuff is more important than ever. Mm-hmm. We've got to get these messages out.
That's why I'm here.
And if there are more people we can help and get smarter on this stuff, then I'm here for it. Secondly, diversification. I cannot keep all of my eggs in one basket with just one lane that I was running any longer. If I want the company to continue to grow. working within the industry partnerships, consulting arrangements that we're doing now. We're seeing solutions come to fruition that I'm excited about. It's the gear that doesn't exist that I want to use and work with. But it's providing solutions.
Yeah.
So that's been good. But a lot of that is at this time primarily social media driven. And when the move is necessary, that we need to
Go somewhere else.
Get that message out somewhere else, we will, and it'll probably follow the trend that most
a lot of other
like-minded individuals are doing at the moment. But then again, I mean, there are some contingencies that I'm not prepared to discuss right now. But with the theme of stay ready, so you have to get ready.
Stay ready. Yeah.
You stand in front. We definitely we have some levers to pull. I never jumped out of a plane without 2 parachutes. So
I appreciate it. That's a really great place to finish, man. Like I said before, I'm uber grateful to even be here.
No, thanks for coming.
I appreciate the time that I've been given so far, and particularly this sit down and getting to understand you a little bit better and kind of where you're coming from and how this all happened. And it provides a little bit of a different foundation. And I'm pretty confident that people listening to this now will get it, right?
Cool.
Like again, and what started as a conversation in an elevator, 6 months ago or whatever, or whatever that was, till now, not quite, but till now, to how this has evolved. I think that's how these relationships should happen.
Sure.
And
organically.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope that people, listen to that and they get how important that is, and that they spend some time listening, right? Just for a little while. Just listen a little bit, and you decide for yourself if you like what you hear. Don't listen to one thing and decide. Right? Listen to all the things for a little while. And then if you go a little while and you decide like that's not for you, great. Then it's not for you.
That's okay.
But in this case, like again, like I only need to listen for a little while to where I decided like I needed to listen to more. And while it took me till now to get here, I was pretty locked in pretty early on to like, this is something I feel like I need to do because I felt compelled. And so I hope that the message gets across to people that there are different people out there doing different things. And it's not always from people that show nothing but flashy shooting videos, because that's not what you're going to find on you and Fred's page.
Nope.
That's just not what you do. But when you get out here, you recognize this is being taught this is my take. There's a higher level of conversation that's happening here than you're ever going to get on the internet.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. And if you're satisfied with what you're getting from the internet, and that's how you want to make all your decisions and all your training, that's where all your training solutions are. You do you, boo. Go out there and do that.
Yeah, you're leaving a lot on the table.
But that's the point. I think you're leaving a lot of shit on the table, and so I would encourage you to come out and check out Praecore and the things that they're doing. So once again, man, thanks for your time. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for having me out.